And we're rolling. Welcome back to Two Dudes Talking Motorcycles. My name is Gleb, and you can follow me on Instagram at GlebLapham.
My name is Mitch. You can follow me on Instagram at Beats to the Beach, and we also have the podcast Instagram at tdtmotorcycles.
And the motorcycle email.
Oh, yes, and our motorcycle email. Sorry. That's at tdtmotorcycles@gmail.com.
So feel free to send us your comments, questions, concerns, feedback, rider stories, advice for us, or questions if you need advice for yourself. We always love getting your guys' emails, so feel free to shoot us an email. And yeah. So today we're going to talk about setting up or adjusting your motorcycle for yourself. And I got this idea for an episode while adjusting suspension on my bike yesterday after watching some YouTube videos where they kind of suggested or recommended to try different suspension setups on my bike.
Is this different from like what's in your manufacturer or your manual?
Sort of. I mean, sort of. Yes, but yes and no.
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no. But before we jump into the main topic, we wanted to... we don't really have too much in the news right now because there hasn't been really too many announcements in the motorcycling world. But give it like a month or two, and we'll start seeing the 2025 model year announcements for pretty much a lot of bikes out there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, are there any bikes you're looking forward to specifically from any of the manufacturers?
I mean, honestly, not really. Just because it's like a lot. I mean, again, maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I'm jaded. Who knows? But so it just kind of seems like some like updates to existing models. I'm not really aware of.
I haven't heard any specific rumors or anything, but I also haven't really paid as much attention just because I've been swamped lately. It feels like
I think it's cool that there's some existing models that are getting some like much needed or really cool upgrades.
Yeah.
But nothing that I'm like, oh, I need that, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, if Triumph announces like a dual sport TF250, then I'll be very excited.
That would be pretty cool.
That would be really cool.
I would also love it if Triumph announced like a Daytona, like 765.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
With the engine from the Street Triple. I think that would be a bike that would definitely catch my attention.
Yeah. And I'm not even a sport bike guy.
Yeah, but same here.
Like,
but I would still love to try it, give it a try.
Yeah.
Just curious about it. But beyond that, I can't think of any, at least I haven't seen any rumors or anything like that on any specific manufacturers releasing any specific model that I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of interesting to take a look at. But
yeah,
I'm looking forward to see what they have in store for the future. I'm sure there'll be, like you said, updates to current models, probably some new colors here and there.
Yeah.
And then maybe one or two new bike announcements from manufacturers, but we'll see. It is going to be like 2025, so maybe there's going to be some refreshes or something depending on the year that the previous model.
Well, we mentioned it as news in the last one. There was like the Speed Twin
1200.
Yeah, like update.
RS or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of about it.
Yeah,
I feel like. But so instead of going too deep into the news, we're going to answer one of the our listener emails. This email is from Jim, and he is considering adding a Triumph to his garage, but was wondering which model would be the best fit. So he currently has a 1992 XT225 Cero, which I'm thinking...
I don't know what that is.
XT. I feel like it might be Yamaha. I could be wrong. It just sounds like a Yamaha name for some reason. He has a 2014 CB500X, which is a Honda, a 2022 Royal Enfield Himalayan, and a 2023 Honda ADV 150, and that's his wife's. And I believe that's one of those almost like little adventure, little rugged, like almost like scooters versus a bike. I can't remember. Or is it just their little tiny... Anyways. I can't remember.
I honestly can't remember because I even looked it up.
His son also has a 2014 Street Triple 675R and a 2014 Daytona 675R. Jealous. And a Z125. So a 2024 Z125. So he's wondering, he's currently switching between the CB500X and the Himalayan and is considering adding or replacing one or both with a Bonneville, maybe an older air-cooled one with the smaller wheels, newer T100, T120, or speed / Scrambler 400.
Yeah.
He's 56, 5'6", and usually rides a combination of back roads, country and state highways in Wisconsin. Now, I don't know much about Wisconsin's geography.
Never been.
But yeah. So
I would guess like in northern plains, maybe a little hilly.
Maybe a little hilly. Maybe there's some twisties here and there. But
I'm sure there's twisties.
I'm sure there's some flats.
Yeah,
lots of flats too.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if it would be too similar to any of his current bikes or any particular model would complement or replace my current bikes.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it because we saw the email obviously before.
Yeah.
We don't open these. We don't cold open emails. But we both like kind of agreed that the Speed or Street Twin, whichever year you get, I guess. Like the 900 or the
Speed Twin, probably 1200.
Probably, yeah.
If you're, I don't know, if Wisconsin speed limits are as high as the ones we have here, I'd probably recommend going with a little bit of a higher displacement bike for maybe better highway cruising.
Yeah.
And he did mention the he's considering a Bonneville. Luckily, there's plenty of options to pick from there, and I probably would stick with the Bonneville line over the Speeder.
Well, and that's what he's wanting.
The Speed 400 or Scrambler 400.
Yeah.
Because those are probably. I mean, we rode the Speed 400, and I thought it was a pretty fun little thumper. But I definitely wouldn't want to take it on like high speed limit highways or anything that requires you to go a little fast because it's
and being at 5'6" too. I think he might be a little. I'm guessing. I don't know, but I would assume he's got like more like mass to him being that tall as like as opposed to like what that bike was really designed for. You know, because it seems like it's a smaller displacement. If he wants to take it on the highway,
it's a little tough on the highway. I took it on the highway and it was.
I'm 6 foot.
It was pushing it.
Yeah.
So I would probably stick with like a T100 or T120,
or the speeds,
or the Speed Twin 1200. But if you're also wanting to really switch it up, because looking at your list, you have a lot of more kind of like upright, like standard seating position bikes. You could also consider looking at something like the Bonneville Bobber or maybe even the Speedmaster, which is super comfortable, I feel like.
Yeah, if you want like a scrambler or a cruiser. Sorry.
Yeah, if you want a bit more of a cruiser experience, I feel like the Speedmaster, Bonneville Speedmaster is kind of a nice bike for that, and also I think it's a very beautiful looking bike.
Well, I was thinking like with his with the CB 500X and his Himalayan, where he's like kind of switches between those. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd have any issues. I think he'd love a T100 or T120.
It's still very
and
upright.
Even if he's going to get an older. If he was to take our advice and look at one of the Speed Twins, even the 900, I mean, that bike's pretty peppy for.
It is pretty peppy.
Compared. I'm looking at like the list of bikes he has.
Yeah, definitely get a good bit of power out of it.
Yeah. But the Speed Twin is because it is more sporty, but it's still a Bonneville. You get like it's very close and we've even talked about it. Like I want a T120. I love the look and how they are. But like the Speed Twin is like kind of on my list because it is like slightly cheaper. Or no, it's in the same price range. Speed really.
Twin, I think it's a little bit more. The 1200 is.
Oh, the 1200. Yeah.
It does come with the adjustable suspension or like the Öhlins shocks on the back and stuff. So it's got a little bit more of. It's a little more feature heavy than the T120.
Yeah.
But also kind of gives you more of that sporty look. I think the T120 does look to me a little bit classier. Yeah, because it's got the spoked wheels, more chrome. And
but I think like the
that.
Speed Twin, Speed Twin. It is like more of like it's a modern classic, but it has like more like modern leaning features to it. But I mean, and I've rode one; they're awesome. I rode like that 1200 at Eurosports that they had a while back, and it's a nice bike, man. Honestly, I think he's on the right path for picking out one he likes.
I think those are.
I would still say try out the Speed and Scrambler 400s, see what you think.
Another one to consider is also the Trident.
Yeah, if you want something more like the Speed Triple.
Yeah, if you want something a little bit more like kind of in between, or to like Mitch said, to match with your like your son's Street Triple. I think the Trident's kind of a fun. I really enjoyed riding that bike. That was a fun little bike, and surprisingly, for me being like 6'1", like it was surprisingly roomy and comfortable to sit on it. I thought.
I felt a little cramped personally.
Did you?
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be much smaller, and I think I was just surprised that it wasn't like as small as
It was still a blast to
I was
ride.
expecting. Yeah, I thought it was a fun little engine.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then
There's also the Daytona 660.
the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
so
Yeah, if you want something
Same
a little
engine
bit,
as the Triton.
yeah, if you want something more of a sports bike, fared sports bike, there is that. But I think
We need to ride that still.
But if you are looking for something like way different than the list that you gave us, I feel like the Bonneville line would be the way to go. So maybe try out the T120 or the Speed Twin 1200,
or even a 900, honestly.
or maybe even 900. I think those are great
twin,
too.
Yeah.
And maybe take a peek at, like, if you want something really different, go for more of like a bobber or cruiser look. Then you got the Speedmaster and the bobber there, which I feel like the Speedmaster looks like it'd be just a really comfortable bike on the long stretches of highway.
Yeah. Well, there's even like, and if we're gonna make suggestions to look at too, just kind of like where he's got like a Himalayan and the CBX or the CB500X. If he doesn't want one of the street, there's also the street scramblers.
Oh, that's true.
So it's bigger than the 400. It's a 900. It's basically a 900 scrambler.
Yeah.
But those seem to get really good like road reviews too, and you can do like a little bit of gravel road here and there too with them. So yeah, I think
and they look good.
And they do look
They
good.
look really good.
They
Put
do
some
look really
knobbies on that.
Yeah.
Boom. You got yourself a good looking bike right there.
Yeah, but with the way he's riding, combination back roads, county and state highways, and reading that, it just said he's more road focused.
Oh yeah.
So
Definitely.
But yes, I mean, in that sense, I think like any like the Trident or the Daytona, or if you're looking at like any of the Bonneville ones, you'd be doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. So
yeah, I think you're on the right page, Jim, or the right path. I think you're.
Let us know.
You just gotta try. You gotta go ride them.
You gotta go ride them if you can. If you have the opportunity to go ride them, do it.
Yeah.
If you decide to grab one, and let us know what.
And
let us know what you go with.
And I hope that helps, because I was wanting to make a recommendation based off where you switch. We switch mostly between your CB 500X and your Himalayan.
Yeah, which are both like lower powered bikes, lower capacity bikes.
Yeah.
So it will be a big jump, but I do love how the T120, like the Bonneville bikes, and then the Speed Twins, they have a pretty good power curve.
Yeah.
Like even though they are like a 1200cc bike, they are heavier, but even though they're like a 1200cc bike, they don't feel like they're gonna slip away from under you.
Yeah.
I feel like they're combination of weight and just kind of like the character of that engine. It doesn't feel like it wants to like slip away from you. It's kind of a very nice and gradual acceleration and power curve. So it doesn't feel overwhelming riding something that big.
Yep.
Even though it's a bigger engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like,
which I think is pretty nice.
Yeah, and whether you get the 1200, like a T120 or Speed Twin, or the Street Twin or T100, there's going to have a little bit more power and like probably get a little bit like more longevity out of your rides in them. Like
you also get a 6th gear.
You get a 6th gear. Well, you probably have a 6th gear on the 500 in the Himalayan.
Oh yeah, but I mean versus like the Speed Twin 900.
Oh, going from or
the Bonneville T100, the
Yeah.
120 or the Speed Twin 1200 have 6 gears, and I think you also get like more power. First of all,
yeah.
You also get those dual gauges, dual dials,
so
which
good.
I think look so much better than just the single dial on the cheaper bikes.
Yeah, I think I maybe I mentioned it in the last one. I'm really not liking how Triumph's like new designs are going away from like that.
Yeah,
I was like, what's this mono thing like on the bobber? I was like,
it's just not as cool.
Works, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not as cool.
Why wear a Casio when you can have a Rolex?
And I just think it's that's at least my recommendation. And since you're looking at Triumph specifically, I mean, there's also like the Tiger 660, like the Tiger Sport. The Tiger Sport and like the Tiger. I mean, obviously the Tiger 900 and stuff, but then you're looking at something very similar to like a CB500X, where it's pretty much a lighter adventure bike, or with the 900 it'd be a heavier adventure bike.
Yeah,
I mean, while comfortable and stuff, they would probably have like more of similar characteristics to the CB500X.
Yeah.
Compared to like a Bonneville, which would be a completely different look.
Yeah.
But also like a different type of bike.
And where he's mentioning about adding like the older air cooled, the 865 SE. I don't know much about those, but
I don't know. I haven't familiarized myself with too many older bikes.
Yeah.
Especially in the kind of the Bonneville line, because the only ones I've ever looked at are, I think, post 2014, 2013 is where they kind of went away with having a carburetor.
Yeah.
And what like all of them had started doing fuel. Maybe it was 2008. Maybe it's a little further back. Anyways, at one point they switched everything to fuel injection, and before that I was like, I don't really want to deal with carbs. So
well, and for me too, like where we, you know, like it gets hot here in Utah.
Yeah.
And like so I've always kind of like steered away from air cooled.
Yeah, that's true. So it kind of depends on I think Wisconsin might be a little bit cooler than here.
Probably.
And so it's just something to take into consideration is how much heat it generates. But if you're constantly moving and stuff, there's probably not a problem. But if it does get well above like 100 degrees
if
or
you're stuck in traffic,
90s, if you're stuck in traffic, then I personally wouldn't really want to have an air-cooled bike at that point.
Yeah, so I think that is like kind of more about the type of riding you're doing, where you're riding, that kind of thing. So
I agree.
So I can't really provide. I don't think we can really provide too much insight on air cooled, but
or
other than
older models, because
I
just don't have enough information for that. That's pretty much my advice. And let us know what you decide to go with. And
that's your invoice for us responding. You have to tell us what you get.
You have to tell us what you get, and let us know if you have any other questions, or if you have any other ideas for a bike, even if it's not a Triumph, we forgive you.
Yep. So get what makes you happy and what makes sense.
Yep. And if you do get that new bike, you might need some new motorcycle gear, or might want to decide to upgrade some gear, which you can do from our affiliate link down in the description below. It's a Revzilla affiliate link, and it doesn't cost you anything extra, but we do get a little bit of a kickback from whatever purchase you make, which helps us, helps us out with the podcast. So we're gonna do that, and if you do end up getting a new bike, you might need to do some adjustments to it, which will bring us into our main topic, talking about adjusting your bike, whether it's brand new or whether you've had it for a while. I think it's something that it hasn't really clicked for me until we took that off-road riding course.
Yeah.
Where they talked about adjusting the
like setting your bike up for you.
Yeah, setting your bike up for you, depending, like, bikes are, there's a certain way you sit on them.
Yeah.
And it kind of depends, and that way can change depending on your like height, your weight, your just body type and things like that, whether you're male, female.
Well, and like the length of your legs and arms even too,
So if you feel comfortable on one bike, it might not translate exactly to another bike. Like I personally never felt comfortable on something that's like an aggressive cruiser, like the Bonneville Bobber or like the Indian Scout or some of those bikes. Like that whole position where I have to feel like I'm really reaching forward with my arms.
Yeah.
Never sat well with me. I can't, like, one, it hurts my back, and two, I feel like so much of the weight is on my wrists that it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
But then other people say that, they love it. They love the cruiser position. It's comfortable for them, or things like that. So it's very different. It varies from type or one bike to another, even within the same brand. It could be different. Like I'm pretty sure if I got on your bike, I'll feel weird and things will feel out of place to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've even, we've ridden each other's bikes like once or twice here and there. And like what always throws me off with your bike, and it was the same on your Honda, is like when you turn the handlebar, nothing else moves.
Oh yeah.
Like with mine, everything moves like with my handlebars.
Yeah, that would probably throw me off.
Yeah, because I turn like, oh no, nothing's working. So
and just the way things are positioned can be different between different models within the same manufacturer, or especially if you jump from one manufacturer to another. Then it's like a whole different ballpark. So I think it's kind of one of those things where if something doesn't feel right, luckily motorcycles have plenty of or a good number of adjustments you can do to them.
Yeah.
Some require tools, some require no tools really. So what kind of, should we go kind of a list from basic adjustments to more complex ones?
Yeah, so I was even thinking we could go from like front to back of a bike.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. So up in the front, I think
Your bike should have a front tire.
it should have a front tire. So I think one of the things is like tire pressure. It kind of depends on what kind of riding you're doing. If we're off-roading, they recommend dropping it a little bit, kind of give it a little bit more absorption, a little bit more, make it a little softer, things like that. But generally for tire pressure, I stick to what the manufacturer recommends, whatever's in my manual. And for the rest of this, like the manual is your best friend.
Yeah.
If you have a question about how to adjust something or what to do on your bike, the manual is the first place I always check. And I like to keep a little PDF copy of it on my phone. Make sure it's downloaded to your phone offline so you can pull it up if you don't have some service and things like, or
if you don't have the book.
Yeah, if you don't have the book or if you don't have service, I think it's super helpful to have it on your phone. And you can quickly search for whatever you need.
Yeah.
Or just like I have a screenshot on my phone of my suspension adjustment from my manual.
Yeah, I think
just
I
so
took one on our
quickly,
trip. Yeah.
so I can quickly pull it up. But yeah, so the front tire, check the tire pressure on that, and then you got the handlebars, which I learned in the off-road class. Is something that I already knew that you could adjust them, but it just never occurred to me that I should try and adjust them.
Well, I never I didn't think I would ever really have to, and they told me not to on mine with the way the bike was. But it's just like, how important is it really? That was kind of like my mindset. I was just ignorant to it.
Yeah. And at least on my bike, it's pretty easy. There's just 2 bolts I had to loosen, and it kind of loosens up. So it doesn't take them off or anything like that. It just lets me kind of tilt them forward or back a little bit to bring it closer. So I tilted mine slightly forward. I found
just to bring them up.
Yeah,
right?
Just to bring up a little higher and angle them down. So if I'm standing, my hands don't have to be like curved up, so they kind of fall more naturally. And I found YouTube's a great source to find a lot of adjustments pretty much on any bike. Brett Trax had one specifically for the Tiger 900, so I used his video to kind of make some of the adjustments on my bike. So you kind of go from there. I think it's nice to find like a baseline adjustment that someone has done, and then kind of fine tune it depending on what your stance is or what makes it more comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So the handlebar adjustment, it was pretty simple to do. However, it's not the simplest thing you can do on the handlebars.
Oh yeah, your clutch and brake levers. Like, what is he talking about? It's like, oh yeah, your bike should have a clutch and brake.
Yep. So it should, unless you have one of the newer, bikes with a manual or the automatic transmission.
Oh, you're right.
Like
Yeah,
the DCT or some of the new BMW.
Regardless, it should have a front brake.
It should have a front brake. At least there's that.
But yeah, you can adjust the lever on it.
Most bikes.
Excuse me, most bikes. But even on like your clutch, you can undo like that little nut up front, and you can adjust like where you want your friction zone. Yeah, in your in the travel of
assuming you have a cable clutch.
So
yeah, if you do have a hydraulic clutch, I believe it's a little bit more involved than that. I've never tried adjusting a cable clutch, nor have I ever tried adjusting my brake lever, because my clutch lever has kind of like a knob you can turn. Yeah, and it kind of moves the lever independently of the cable to different positions. Yeah, how far away it is from my hand.
Yeah, and I'll say I tried to adjust mine, and I was just, it almost felt like I'd pull it in even all the way to the handlebar, and it wasn't fully closed. And so I tried adjusting it out a little bit, and it felt like it worked. But then like the non-riding season started, so when I come back to winter, I'm just like, it could have all just been in my head. And
sometimes I feel that way too. Yeah. I personally like my clutch to be, so I usually just use 2 fingers, the 2-finger clutch. I kind of like it to like start feeling the bike tugging in, like kind of the clutch engaging, like right as I'm about like right off my fingers. Yeah, so like halfway between fully released and fully disengaged, like right in between. And sometimes it's a little tricky to get to that point. And sometimes, like I was playing with it yesterday, and I'm like, oh yeah, this feels about right. Then like 5 minutes down the road, I'm like, no, this is way further than I want it to be. So I like stopped and pulled over and adjusted it some more. But it's just weird sometimes.
Yeah. Well, like when I tried it, this was a couple of years ago, but when I tried it, like I watched like 1 or 2 YouTube videos, and then I went in, I messed with it, tried it, and then like riding season stopped, started back up. I took it in for I can't remember why I even took my bike in for that time, but can you guys like just set like the clutch back to factory measurement?
Yeah.
And they did. And then like after that, like I watched another video and I just kind of figured out like where I wanted it. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. I'm leaving it there. I'm not touching it.
Yeah, I keep fiddling back and forth with mine because I can't figure out exactly
do
where I would like it.
Oh.
And I feel like every time I get on, I'm like, I kind of want it to be a little different, you know? That's kind of, I feel like a lot of it is just trial and error on some of those things.
Yeah.
Brake lever, though, I've never tried adjusting my brake lever because I always felt like it was good where it was.
I brought mine in. I twist because mine's adjustable, so I just like brought it in a little closer.
Okay, nice.
And I did that like for like if I'm ever standing on it, and I don't have to like reach out for it. I can just grab it.
Yeah,
yeah.
So mine was already in a good spot for where I'd like it to be, but yeah, it's one of those things where you have to adjust it. And then on my bike specifically, I also have the TFT screen, which has a small degree of customizability. And I kind of, at least on the Tiger 900, there's like 4 layouts you can choose from that you can set it up. And I've played with all 4 of them, and they're all kind of, I don't really like any of them particularly.
No,
because they just use like, they make a poor use of space. I've talked about this on the podcast plenty of times.
Yeah.
I feel like they could show a lot more information on it. So none of them really show what I wanted to.
That's a good point, actually, because I've thought about it when you talked about your screen in the past, and I just always forgot to bring it up. Is like, you see how small my little wheel. If you ever seen a scrambler, like a 2019 up to 2022, 23, it's just that small little like TFT circle on there. And I was like, I've seen like your display, I've seen Tiger displays, and I see mine's like, my little thing has the exact same amount of information as your big screen.
Yeah. And so it's like a big waste of space. And I don't have the Bluetooth module on mine, so I don't really like, it's not going to show me like what music I have playing, like phone call or directions and stuff, even though I heard like the Triumph apps kind of sucks anyways. So I
need to go back and try it out. Ever since like I got my new phone and like a new helmet, I've never synced anything since then, but so I don't, except the GoPro. The GoPro feature is pretty cool.
So I don't even have like that on my screen. So there's really, beyond like trip information, gas consumption, and RPMs. Yeah. Like there's really nothing else the screen displays. It doesn't show me like my oil temperature, my engine temperature, or anything like that.
Really?
Directly on the screen.
Oh.
Well, it has the gauges, but it doesn't show the actual number.
Oh.
Like there's no option to even view that. So I'm like, you have all this screen real estate, and I got 2 tachometers for some reason that are in a wing shape on each side, which looks cool but unnecessary. And there's only
one flying the Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, but there's only like one screen that has like the tach on one side and then the speed on the other. But then that one for some reason doesn't show the fuel gauge or the coolant or the engine temperature gauge. It'll show me like my fuel consumption, but it doesn't show the actual like full and empty fuel gauge. I'm like, you have room. There's room to probably squeeze it in. Okay, anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. It's just one of those weird things. But I went through all the different layouts, and then the one I have now is the one that I'm like, all right, this shows me all the information that I need without making it look like
you want
big bold letters. Yeah. The speed is nice and up front. I can see my RPMs, and that's kind of all I need.
I think the reason you don't like having the big display is it's just more pixels to blur in your videos for your speed.
I don't even ride that fast enough to blur anything out. But anyways, so if your bike has like a TFT or anything like that, or like a screen, it might have some kind of degree of variability. So that's another thing you can kind of consider adjusting to show information that you want to see versus, what the manufacturer already has it set up by default. And I think that's pretty much it for the front that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've talked about like aftermarket stuff already in an episode, but a phone mount.
A phone mount, like positioning where that is, GPS mount if you have that. Mm-hmm. Oh, windscreen.
Yeah, windscreen.
Yeah. You can. A lot of bikes, if you do have a windscreen, you can. Well, certain bikes you can adjust that, and I think it's a good. I think it's a good thing to adjust because it might reduce the buffeting or the air on your head, for example, or on your chest. Some bikes make it much easier than others. On mine, I can just grab it with one hand, pull it towards me, and slide it up and down.
Yeah.
Super easy, very convenient.
That's nice.
If you have lots of money and you ended up with a Honda Goldwing, you can just adjust it electronically.
Yeah.
Or one of the new GS, or one of the new the R1300 GS bikes.
Is it Multistrada? I can't remember.
I can't remember if it was electronic. I don't think it was. I don't think it was electronic or not.
Okay.
I think it might have been manual.
Yeah.
But some bikes make it easier than others. Some have like weird knobs you turn. Some just have two positions. You kind of slide it up and down.
Yeah.
Others you have to physically like unscrew the screen and then like move it up a notch, which makes it a little bit
trickier
if you want to do it like if you didn't get it right the first time.
Yeah, getting like a windscreen that works for you though, like it's good for your positioning and your body size, I guess. Boy, it does make the difference. Because again, you remember I was one of those guys who's like, oh, I don't need a windscreen.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it looks cooler without one.
And then
we go on long rides. I'm like, oh no, we're absolutely not. Give me a windscreen.
Yep, I feel that way too. And then if you are, so adjust your bike. And important thing is if you are hopping between bikes from one bike to another, or if you're renting one, if you're demoing one, it's going to feel off. And that's something you can do. For example, if you're on a motorcycle tour and you end up renting a bike from something, that's probably the first thing you'd want to check is some kind of adjustment and see if you or whoever the tour host is can help it adjust it to your body. So you feel good riding it, so it doesn't feel awkward or weird or doesn't fatigue you or tire you out.
Yeah.
And that's something you can do if you decide to take a tour with our friends over at Shogun Motorbike Adventures out in Japan.
Yeah. And so speaking of, this episode is actually brought to you by Shogun Motorbike Adventures. Shogun Motors... Jeez. I keep wanting to say their full name. You can join Shogun on their flagship guided motorbike tour, the Fuji Explorer, kicking it off in 2025. Ride, explore, and immerse in an adventure like no other, tackling thrilling mountain twisties and cruising on dreamy coastal highways, all while getting to know Japanese rich history and culture.
Whether you're an experienced rider or new to the thrill of motorbike touring, Shogun Motorbike Adventures has you covered. With routes that suit all levels of experience, their inclusive tours come with a wide selection of bikes, quality accommodation, expert guides, a support vehicle, culture experiences, and more. All you have to do is book your flights and show up on day one.
And if you listen to our podcast, you are entitled to 15% off of your booking with promo code 2dudes15.
Search Shogun Motorbike Adventures and book your spot on the Fuji Explorer Tour today. Ride, explore, and immerse in Japan with Shogun Motorbike Adventures.
They had me at coastal highways.
Yeah, so that sounds super nice. I've always wanted to ride in Japan, so like hopefully maybe one day we can join them on this tour. But if you are curious about that, and if you do end up on this tour, remember to ask them about how to adjust your motorcycle to what they do.
Well, and about that, like, because again, like, they have like a full range of bikes they would be providing, and so like this is like, they're our sponsor. This is a great example. You get on the bike, you'll get your bike, but you're gonna want to make sure it is like set up for you because Japan's an island, but it's still a long ride.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
You want that set up for you.
Yeah.
So
and one of the biggest adjustments for comfort level you can make is in the seat.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So a lot of bikes you have, the standard seat height. They have their seat height in the specifications. Then you can have either a taller seat or a shorter seat. Usually the time it's shorter. On my bike, for example, I can take the seat off. There's two like things that can move. Lower the seat of the height of the seat to make it a little easier to reach the ground, and then or make it bring back up to standard height. In addition to that, there's also things you can put on your seat. There's like the sheepskin if you want a little bit more height, or seat cushions that you can add.
Yeah, and like speaking of those, like it will make you a little higher, like with our at least with my sheepskin.
Yeah.
It does help with the comfort. It did provide it. It was still like my ass was still killing me after
100%.
after that ride, but I can't imagine what that's like. I just think like when they were designing my bike, Triumph was just like, you know what, with this tall suspension anyone under like this height, it's just we're not going to consider them. Because
Is your seat adjustable at all?
No, you have to buy a lower seat.
Huh. That sucks.
And I don't. And I will say, like, that Scrambler seat, at least on the 2019, I haven't tried any other ones. Abysmal. for the price I paid for that bike.
Yeah.
That stock seat.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that a few times.
Yeah, it is. It's rough. But then you sit on like a T120, or like even on the Thruxton. Even on the Thruxton.
Maybe it's because like of the shorter stance of those bikes. I mean, the frame is pretty much the same though.
It's the same frame.
It's just the suspension that's higher.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know why the Scrambler seat is so bad.
Yeah.
But I've sat on new ones at the store or at the shop too.
Do they feel a little better?
No, they feel the same. But again, I haven't sat on like a really newer one to know.
Yeah.
But like next time I go, I'll sit on a newer Scrambler to see if they've gotten the hint.
Yeah.
If Triumph has picked up on that yet.
So you can adjust your seat, and if your seat is adjustable, most bikes make it fairly easy to do so. And then right below the seat, you got your foot pegs. And you got your brake and your shift lever, which those are, or your gear lever, shifter, whatever it's called.
Yeah, you got it, shifter.
So those two things can also be adjusted. For example, on my bike, at least for the foot brake, there is for the rear brake, there is a knob you can turn. And it kind of just ever slightly angles it up and down, but also I can like pull it out, flip it around. It kind of gives it a little bit more height for off-roading, so you can hit it better while standing up on the bike.
Yeah.
And then the shift lever is kind of the same. The shift lever I feel like is even easier to adjust because it's usually just one.
I've never adjusted that.
You never adjusted your shift lever? I have adjusted mine, and I think most bikes is pretty similar to this. It's just one knob that you turn, and it just kind of moves it up or down to where it is.
I'm looking into that.
I watched, it was Brett Tracks on YouTube again for my bike specifically. He recommended if you're off-roading, so
raise it.
Yeah. No, he recommended basically like make sure it's level with where your foot's going to be sitting. So your foot's going to be facing forward from the foot peg. Make sure the shift lever is basically right there. Okay. That's how he had it set up. So I was like, okay, that's pretty much how I have mine set up ever since, and it works pretty well. I still have a hard time upshifting going off while standing up on it. It just kind of awkwardly twists my foot. So there's probably a little bit of room I can room to improve on there. But yeah, I have it set up kind of nicely. And same with the rear brake lever or the rear brake pedal. I have it set up to kind of so I can easily, so I don't have to move my foot too much to press it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I think when we've off-roaded on mine, and this is going into setting up my bike for me, I never had a problem downshifting, standing up or off-roading. It's getting my foot under the peg
same here.
To shift back up when I need to.
What about your rear brake? Does that usually feel pretty good when you're standing up on it?
I think I might need to raise, because I have it flipped. I still have it flipped, like, so it's higher up already. The little step.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it. But yeah, I have that flipped up higher already. But I remember like when we were off-roading, we're going down some of those steep, obligatory mic bump. We would we'd be going down some steep hills, and I'd be pushing it, and my foot would be. If these are my feet, my foot would be like my brake foot would be like really down.
There was on that one of the trails that we did. I forgot to flip it into like the off-road stance or whatever.
Yeah,
I forgot to flip it on that, and I remember like my foot was like reaching so far down, I almost felt like I was gonna like cramp up for a second because on those down hills, like I kept making sure to like have my foot on it so I can modulate the pressure and the speed on it. And I was like, oh my God, my foot feels like it's going to like cramp up on me a little bit because it's been in that position for so long at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really need to adjust that.
You know, I want to revisit setting up my bike for myself for off-roading. Like once I'm 100% again with my knee. Yeah. Is like, I'm pretty lanky and tall. And where I was told to not like really do much like with my handlebars, like I'm always in that attack or aggressive position, and boy, that gets tiring.
Oh, I bet
it kills like not just my knees, but like my shins, my calves, and my back. Yeah. So I do think I need to revisit setting it up for myself, or I don't know. Poor me. Maybe I just need to get another bike.
Remember, the best tough. Amount of bikes you can have is N+1.
It's tough living out here. Yeah.
So yeah, foot controls, hand controls, seat.
Before we move on, more foot control. I think this falls under foot controls. Is foot pegs. like your actual pegs for
I
your.
don't even know if I can adjust mine.
Well, maybe not adjustments, but again, if you're gonna be off-roading, getting wider ones.
Oh yeah.
I don't know on street, like if you're doing like long haul cruiser rides, like I know you can get like highway bars. I think that counts as a measurement.
Probably helps a little bit.
It's for comfort and fitting you, like for those long.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'd be interested if there's like more like highway anti-vibration fancy foot pegs.
Like on our bikes, you can take out the little rubber pads. Out of the foot pegs,
which do help with off-roading.
Yeah, so you have better grip.
Mine on.
I haven't put mine back on because I don't really notice a difference. But that's something you can do, or you can get maybe like if there's too much vibration, you can get like more rubber.
Yeah, like
pads that have like more rubber on them, so dampen them out a little bit, or just make it a little bit more comfortable, or something wider, like you said. But at least on my bike, I don't think there's a way to adjust the actual positioning of the foot pegs.
It was just more of like, it's not so much like adjusting like measurements. It's just like making sure you're setting it up for yourself. Yeah. It's like, hey, I know I'm going to do some like off-road stuff. Like you might want to look into some overpriced wider foot pegs, because they are overpriced.
Yeah. They're way pricier than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I should get metal. I was thinking about getting some like for our trip after like our off-road class. It's like $300.
I don't want to pay that right now
for foot pegs. And you lost one.
I did. I lost my passenger foot peg. I don't know how. Triumph sent me a new one.
Oh, they did?
No. I'm telling them.
Oh, you're telling them. Yeah.
If someone from Triumph is listening to this podcast, send me a new left passenger foot peg.
No idea how that came off. Almost took me out.
And then, so those are kind of like the more easier adjustments you can make.
Yeah.
Then you kind of get into this something a little bit more complicated, and that's the suspension. And I still don't fully comprehend how the fuck suspension works.
This is like our main topic of the main topic.
Setting up. So the basics of it, you got on most bikes. Not all bikes have adjustable suspension. Some have it electronic, which I'm sure makes it much easier because it's just done on your screen electronically. And then some have like active dampening and things like that, which basically make changes on the fly.
Yeah.
But there's like the preload you can do on a lot of bikes have it on the rear suspension, but some you can do it also on the front. Mm-hmm. And then you can also do the suspension or the compression and rebound dampening on the front, and some bikes on the back as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where it gets kind of more tricky because I feel like a lot of it is just trial and error.
Yeah.
Because the preload can depend a lot on the weight of the rider, and plus any additional like luggage and things that you have on your bike and where you're planning on riding.
Yeah. And I mean, and again, going back to just my bike, I know it can be setting the preload can be easier on some bikes, on some than others. Mine is pretty, not hard, just a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to mess with that.
And your rear shocks have both compression and dampening, right? That you can adjust. Mine just has
but they're both individual,
or compression and rebound.
Yeah.
I think mine just has rebound on the back, but fully adjustable on the front.
Yeah.
And it's one of those cases where even though we have the same exact manufacturer, Triumph, mine's significantly easier to adjust than his. Mine doesn't require any tools to adjust the compression or the rebound in the front. Nor do I need a tool to adjust the preload on the back. It just has a big old knob that you twist, and then in the front I just have two little nipples that you give it a little twist.
Yeah.
To adjust the compression or the rebound.
Do you enjoy that?
Sometimes I like to fiddle with them a little bit while I'm riding. Yeah.
Give them a little pinch and twist.
A little pinch and twist. Yeah. So it's a little bit easier, which is super annoying for you because you have to have an actual tool to. Some of the stuff around.
Yeah, I just get that like that weird like IKEA wrench thing that to adjust mine with. So it's the front. Once I read it, understand it, it's not bad. But there was a while. I mean, even up till the trip, even on the trip, I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like what?"
Yeah.
Like okay, like this one says T left or right. This one says C left or right. And looking at it, it's like okay, like well, what are my measurements? And I took, Emerson's mechanical genius. Say like, well, all the way left is closed, so go the other way.
Yeah. And like on mine, which is nice, they click. There's a noticeable stop between each measurement. So I just have to in my head mentally count how many times I've turned it from they're fully closed or open position, whatever side. And
Yeah.
then I just go off with the manual measurements. But it's one of those things. The manual just gives you like a specific number of scenarios, but there is lots of adjustments you can make on my front suspension at least. So I'm like, okay, what's going to be the best setup for me? And I still have not figured that part out.
Yeah.
Because it's different whether you're riding on pavement or off-road, first of all. And then, it kind of can depend on your riding style and your size and your weight as well.
Yep.
But then on our trip, when I had my bike fully loaded with all the luggage on the back, I maxed out the rear preload, like the manual said, and gives you a little bit more. I guess I don't even know what it does.
Does it
gives you more
preload?
But I guess it makes it so your suspension doesn't, bottom out as easily.
Yeah.
With all that weight on the back, and then same with the front. And
Yeah.
then yesterday, before I did my ride, there was a couple of YouTube videos that I've seen on the Tiger 900 where people basically maxed out the preload on the front of the bike, and they said that it felt much better in handling. I don't really know if I notice a difference. Maybe I just don't have like the finesse, the tuning, enough riding experience to kind of like notice the little nuances or the little changes in the suspension.
Yeah.
But I'll stick with it for now and see how it feels.
Do you, did you off-road yesterday?
No.
Okay. I was going to see if you adjusted it for that or.
No, I just hit pavement because I was too lazy to go off-roading.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah. Especially with, only one good knee. So. But,
for you, yeah. I'm good.
Now suspension's tricky, like, cause you do kind of have to like, at least like in my manual, I don't know if it's different for you, but it does give me like a little graph or like a chart of one rider on road set to this.
Yeah.
Mine has 2 riders on road set to, yeah.
Yeah. Mine has pretty much similar. Yours goes in like weird quarters, quarter turns.
Yeah, so like 4 clicks is a full turn, or I think it's even more than that.
It's like 1.25, 1.5.
Yeah,
right.
It's so bizarre.
Mine's just whole numbers. Mine goes from like 8 to like I don't know, 18 or like it goes from 1 to like 18 or something, which I'm like
yeah. Well, like and like our bikes have the same same front suspension.
Yeah, same front.
And so it's like you have nipples you get to play with.
Yeah.
I got to perform like a tooth extraction to get to adjust mine. So it's like okay, I get they want the modern classic. I hate that I have to do that. Like, use the tool. I want nipples, Gleb.
Yeah.
So
and but I was adjusting my front suspension rebound or preload yesterday, which does require a 19 millimeter wrench. And I was like, oh, my bike came with like a tiny little toolkit with like 3 tools in it.
Yeah.
Surely one of those wrenches will work. Nope. Nope. I had to go dig one out of my toolbox in my garage to adjust that. I'm like, why isn't this included with the bike? Like, I feel like if you have a thing that requires a tool to adjust, something that's not like, then you don't need to be a mechanic to adjust.
Yeah, if it's meant to be adjusted on the roadside, right?
Yeah, like, why isn't there a tool provided to make that adjustment? I don't know. It's stupid.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't get it either.
But
we love Triumph.
But I will say, like, while I do have the fun little nipples to play with for the compression and the rebound, the preload took forever to adjust because I do have to there's only so much room between my windscreen or my TFT and the tank that I can turn the wrench. So there was over and over and over. I'm like, this has been going on forever. So I had to look it up to make sure. I'm like, can I go over the specific amount? Like, am I going to put too much on here? And then I realized there was a hard stop where it's noticeably you can't churn it anymore.
It thunks.
Yeah, you can't churn it anymore. So I did that, and I had to go do it on the other side because there's 2 forks.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like could be an easier way. So it did make me maybe a little bit jealous of bikes that have the electronic suspension because they can just do it on the fly.
Yeah.
And you can adjust stuff on the fly, which I feel like would be kind of cool because then you can, especially if you can change the settings while you're riding to really feel how the suspension changes as you go through the different modes or settings that it might have.
Well, it was the Panigale that we rode that did that, didn't it? If you change riding modes, it would automatically. Yeah,
there was a noticeable difference
if you went to race mode or something.
Yep. And they had the active dampening, so if you're hitting bumpy roads or if you're really hard on the brakes, it adjusts the compression or the whatever setting it needs to make it so your nose doesn't dive as well. And all that stuff. Same with like the R1300 GS or the Multistrada, all of those, the Tiger 1200, all of those, they're pretty expensive bikes. So they have,
again, you're looking at some pretty you're looking at very expensive bikes at that point.
They have fully electronic suspension, but even like the Africa Twin has the electronic suspension, or the Tiger 900 GT has electronic suspension on the back, on the rear.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it does. It has it on the rear. So you can, like, there's settings for like, solo rider plus passenger or solo plus luggage, like all of these different things. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But then you kind of go into the thing, like, that's another thing that can break. That's another electronic bit that has a potential failure point, which I feel like that's why you don't see that level of electronics on more of like the dirt oriented or off-road oriented bikes.
Yeah.
Because the Desert X is like a $20,000 bike. I don't think it has electronic suspension. I think it's all manually adjusted. Like, you have to adjust it yourself.
I think you're right. I think I remember seeing. Yeah, I think it is. I think it has nipples too.
Yeah, because it is more geared towards like on and off road riding. Well, something like the Multistrada or the GS, they know their audience. It's probably going to be more primarily off road ridden.
Yeah.
Plus, you get into that price point, then you kind of expect it.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, it's like, that price point.
Yeah.
This bike better be adjusting itself for me.
Exactly. So, but it's one of those things where suspension, I feel like it's tricky, because if maybe you're not like, unless you're like a professional rider, you ride a lot, or you can kind of tell the difference between the suspension settings, then it might be tricky to figure out what's the right thing for you. And I think the only thing you can do it is by, adjusting it, riding, making more adjustments, riding. So it's just a more involved process, which is why we saved it for last.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's on this topic.
Yeah, it's tricky. We adjusted it, like you said. We still don't fully grasp it. It's just like we have to.
It's a mystery that only the universe knows.
So, but yeah, if you guys know how you're working your suspension, congrats.
If you have a Tiger 900, let me know what your setup is, because I would love to pick your brain about it.
Yeah.
Send me a DM on Instagram.
If someone wants to just come adjust my scrambler for preload settings and everything for me, I'm fine with that too. So, but I think that's really all
That's kind of what I have for adjustments. I can't think of anything.
I think it's
else.
just more of like a food for thought, right?
It's more food for thought, yeah. Because each bike's going to be different, and not all bikes have the same level of adjustments.
Yeah.
As
some
others.
don't even need it, really.
Some might not even need it. You might get on the bike and they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Some of them have it electronically, so it makes it much easier for you to do stuff.
And I haven't adjusted. And so that's actually, I do want to add that caveat is I owned my bike for like almost 3 years, and I didn't make any like major like adjustments like that, like we've talked about. Like,
I'm pretty sure pretty much the same. I haven't like messed with suspension at all until like this
started
year.
Getting into off-roading.
Yeah. There is one other thing that I just thought of is some bikes are taller than others. And a lot of those taller bikes, like my bike, I'm sure maybe for yours, they do sell like lowering kits where you can order them lowered from the factory. So if you are a shorter rider, you can still like at least somewhat easier reach the ground. In the combination of the lower seat and the lower suspension from the factory, there are those options, but that requires a whole pretty much rework of like the suspension of the bike.
It'll cost you.
And it'll probably cost you extra, but there is options if you want a specific off-road bike.
Yeah, and I would assume, Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like, if you are a shorter rider and you want a specific bike, there are options for lowering kits from the factory from most of the manufacturers that I've seen.
Yeah,
I don't know how it works. I don't know what they do, but I'm sure it changes the characteristics of the bike, and
that's what
especially like off-road performance a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna speculate. Is like, I would imagine like, like you go into a dealer and you sit on a bike. And it's like, oh, I really like this bike, but it's just a little too tall. Or maybe like, oh, it's just too tall. It's like, so the bike as it comes standard, that it's too tall for you.
Yeah.
So like then like I don't know how's the lowering kit measured of like.
I think it's just specific number.
Okay.
Like it goes from like X seat height to Y seat height, seat height, or N seat, or like.
Okay.
Seat height, and that's it, and then the rest is like you might be able to adjust adjusted in the seat itself.
Yeah. So if you're buying a bike new from a factory, that's an option. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could buy like a lowering kit and take it to a dealer or
Yeah,
a mechanic.
I'm pretty sure a dealer would be happy to sell
Sell
you
you
one
something.
and sell you the installation of it with your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
They would be perfectly happy to accommodate
I'm
that
sure.
for you, especially if
Yeah.
you're buying a brand new bike and then buying that service. I'm sure they'll find a way.
They have to. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I'm
but
sure.
that's the only last thought that I had.
Yeah. So
That's it.
yeah, we'll be back.
We'll be back in the next episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.